Our guest today is Jeannine Kim, a highly experienced, multi-talented, intuitive healer, medium, and holistic practitioner with a strong spiritual foundation that has guided her life path. Jeannine is passionate about connecting with others to help them realize their own limitless potential for wholeness. Jeannine's extensive background spans over 2 decades, encompassing certifications in areas such as yoga instruction, Reiki, massage therapy, acupressure, feng shui, and end of life hospice assistance. And her healing gifts have allowed her to serve thousands of clients worldwide through intuitive readings, energy work, and past life exploration. And more recently, Jeannine has delved into advanced studies in cosmic consciousness, astrology, mediumship, remote viewing, ancestral healing, and trauma integration. She's a contributing writer for The Edge magazine and has an upcoming book entitled Dark Matters, scheduled for release in 2024. With a wealth of knowledge and a heart-centered approach, Jeannine Kim is dedicated to guiding others on their sacred journey of self-discovery, bringing clarity, peace, and profound healing through love and compassion. Jeannine, I'm truly honored to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you, Peter. I really appreciate that. That was quite a lovely introduction. I realized I
Welcome.
did all that.
Yeah,
Woo!
I see each person in this infinite expanse of the cosmos. Every person to me is a brilliant star. A brilliant star is born, and you're a radiant soul whose light has blazed a path through the mysteries of existence, from the earthly realms of finance to the celestial planes of healing. Your journey is an odyssey of self-discovery, guided by the whispers of the universe. I've got a two-part question that's come to mind. The first part is, what whispers first called you to embark on your spiritual odyssey? That's the first part. And then in the
Okay.
back of your mind, to work on the second part is, as you navigated the transition from finance to healing, what were the greatest challenges you faced and how did you overcome them?
Wonderful. I love these questions. All right. So let me get quiet and see which one wants to come up first. See what's coming through here. On one hand, I guess we could say I was born this way, where I was intuitive at a very young age. But like most children, on one hand, right? But it was like I would see things, I would hear things, I would notice situations, and I would bring it up to my family. And then over time, I saw the reaction, it wasn't too favorable. And of course, I wasn't consciously aware of this. But in the noticing of that, over time, I started to realize how different I was in that regard. And then on top of it, as time went by, I'm sensitive biologically. So my body needed certain care. And the Western care that was out there, it was pretty harsh for me. Like every time I would need something, the rebound was really rough for me to come back from. Little infections, like antibiotics were rough on my system. And I dealt with some health issues in my 20s. And everything started to come together, and the whispers were this more subtle way of life, was more true to my soul. It really just took me down different paths of reading different books, getting really step by step taken by a yoga practice in the early 90s. That led me to Shirley MacLaine books that would speak about past lives. Then that felt more true than my Catholic upbringing, which I love and appreciate. I'm born in Chicago, and then I was raised South Side. It's been little by little, these little steps, like little whispers, that when I followed just one at a time, like Hansel and Gretel's little path, it just kept growing and getting louder and getting bigger and becoming more true to me. So after listening to those, I could go right into the finance and the healing. I was in the financial industry. I moved out quite young, about 17, almost 18 years old, and tricky upbringing and childhood. It was great on one hand and really challenging on the other. So it was about survival. It was about
Mm.
survival for me. And the work that I did, it just took me to the finance industry. I'm great with numbers. I could link it all together. The financial industry in the 90s was like my upbringing. I could handle the roughness. And it paid good, but paid well. But on the other side, I was doing yoga at the end of the day. I was reading Gary Zukav's Seat of the Soul, positive thinking books, Norman Vincent Peale, and there's other insight of was blossoming. And so after about 10 or 12 years of being in the finance industry, IPO trader, it's time to take my passions and bring it full-fledged into my life. And the hardest part about that was the massive adjustment with my friends and my family. That was the hardest part for me because my whole life that I had built was around an old version of who I was. And now that the more true version, the upgraded version came into play, it didn't match. I lost a lot of friends and family, and that was the hardest part, the ultimate hardest part.
It's what I would call a separation event.
Mm. I, I never looked at it that way, but that's exactly what it was.
Every individual's experience is unique, but it's shaped by their personal circumstances, their coping mechanisms, and their support systems. It's where the principal actors are emotional turmoil and cognitive dissonance and behavioral changes and psychological impacts that can arise from separation events, because the common thread is there is a profound impact of loss. And that could be a significant relationship. It could be a change in your emotional, cognitive, behavioral, and spiritual life. That can cause a separation event, something that can really impact your life and also the people around you, because all of a sudden you're in a completely different dimension. And what they recognize are the heuristics of, ah, that's not who you are. That's not the Jeannine I know.
That's
So,
exactly what it was. Yeah.
yeah, you can't go into people pleasing 'cause it's not like you can go back. The rear view
Right.
mirror is quite small, but the windshield is very wide and very large. And you want to
Ooh,
move forward with your life and move forward with what is organizing and propelling you to be an agency of amplification for those things that you need to birth into the collective.
I love that. That is one thing that I love to share with so many people. Having been on this path outside of all the healing aspects of it, what I bring foundationally that way is to just understand that this spiritual journey, or what we really imagine that spiritual journey to be, it's not like unicorns and daisies and butterflies. And being psychic doesn't mean that you're gonna know. It does mean you could sense things ahead of time, but it doesn't keep you away from hardship,
Mm,
because that edge of hardship is like what I love. Ram Dass would always say, grist for the mill. So it's like essential to our soul. And sometimes even being in the spiritual realm, I have found it to be even more challenging. The stakes are higher because how much
yeah.
will you follow your truth? How
Mm,
much will you follow your truth? And like you said, not put yourself down, not be a people pleaser, to squeeze yourself back into the mold of what your life was. How much courage and faith can you just take and move forward and trust to include yourself and share what you need to share? It's going to look
absolutely.
different and it could be scary. Yeah.
The whole thing of a spiritual life, there are risks involved because it's not about adhering to dogmas or engaging in ritualistic practices. It's about
Right.
cultivating the soil for a profound connection with the present moment, free from the constraints of past conditioning or future projections. It's about a state of being deeply immersed in the here and now, but with a deep appreciation for the intricate web of existence that permeates every aspect of our reality. So it's not a destination to be reached, but a continuous journey of uncovering and self discovery and expansion of consciousness. We have to set our feet upon the path of shedding the illusion of separation and
Right.
recognizing the fundamental interconnectedness of all things. And that can stretch from the subatomic particles that comprise our physical bodies to the vast expanse of the cosmos. It's not about a renunciation or detachment from the material world, as some people
Yeah.
proclaim,
No.
to rather a celebration of its inherent beauty and complexity. It invites us to approach life with a sense of childlike wonder, where we can perceive the world not as a collection of inanimate objects, but as a dynamic tapestry of energy and vibration. That's a very clear distinction for me, because there's the encouragement to cultivate a state of mindfulness. Our senses become attuned to the subtleties of our surroundings, and our actions are guided by a deeper sense of authenticity and alignment with the natural rhythms of the universe.
Yes, I love it because when we do reorient ourselves to not just say everything is energy first, but to really live and breathe that in every moment, then we know, and tell me if this is where you were going, this is what I took from it, that our identity is our frequency. It isn't so much what we've done, where we go, not even our vision boards. Intention is important, but I love to say intention is important once your wound has been met. And intention is important when you give a little room for spirit as well.
Mm.
Because sometimes, if too much intention is there, we're just taking the past along with us. You were speaking of just being in this moment and letting that mystery, that unknown, also add to our forward journey. And if we trust the energy that we are, we will know that will come, and we will really take care of any of that, the traumatic stuff that needs to. We can't just sweep it away by way of focus or intention, because it's still there in our energy field. So there was one thing you said that I love to share is, again, with spiritualism, like the way people chat about it and imagine it. I love to say that being human is the most spiritual thing we can do. And in the past, the dogmatic experience or the words, the collection was that being human is separate from spirit. And I'm like, no, being human is the most spiritual thing we could do. So listening to the call of that and letting go of that chase. And that current paradigm is the chase. But I feel like this is where we're at the crossroads. The new paradigm that's rising is really about being here now, understanding the whole gamut of our energy and the importance of everything we feel, and really getting into it instead of escaping from it.
When we look at the uniqueness of each individual, to my mind, we are a replay of the core of creation,
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love that.
as distinct from me having a core. I don't have a core. The core that I have is a replay of the core of creation. And it's my opportunity to give the soul not the separation that we all experience in today's materialistic world, but the unification and the expression of that soul, and what that soul is meant to do, what the essence is, as distinct from the personality, which is usually gifted to us by societal conditioning, parents, peers, and all the rest of it. But when we remove the husk and really see within the acorn is a forest,
Mm,
right?
right.
But we have to be able to liberate that acorn, because I would imagine in your finance and you doing yoga, the acorn started to wobble, started to wanting to break out,
Mhm,
so that you
mhm.
could plant this forest of diversification and integration. Hence all the certifications you did, all the different teachings you did, because that is your soul's expression. That is part of you being that replay of a core, to my mind, that God and creation wants to express through you, so it shapes your agency. And as it shapes your agency, the ripple effect is it starts to ripple into other people's lives. And it's like a phoenix rising from the ashes. You've emerged from the fires of the past, reborn as a healer, a mystic, and a guardian of sacred wisdom. And your soul's been tempered by the trials of life, and you've become now a beacon for those seeking solace and illuminating the paths that lead to wholeness and inner peace. My question to you is, what experiences or rising realizations or pivotal moments catalyze your rebirth What liberated your acorn as a healer and a mystic? And how do you help individuals uncover their inner beacons and find their way to wholeness?
The more true I became to myself, the more I let my needs enter the room, my emotions, my feelings, my inclinations, the more I let that happen, the more it built inside of me. And almost like a little acorn seed, I couldn't contain the conditioning that was around me anymore. I just couldn't. It was hard because I was married to someone else at the time and it wasn't fitting well in the marriage that I was in at that time. So the breaking free of that was really having the courage to give that a try and to say, okay, and that doesn't have to happen to everybody. Your partner might adjust. My partner couldn't. And our needs were more based on that external realm than the internal. But once it came open, I just kept following it little by little. And some steps were big, but most of them were tiny. And what I tell my clients is, and again, I work with this on a very holistic level because of the training I've had in traditional Chinese medicine and holistic health practicing and just ancient teachings, where we really study all four bodies, all elements that in the astrology, you see it in holistic care, you see it in Ayurvedic, traditional Chinese medicine. So look at your spiritual body, which is different from your soul, by the way, your mental body, your emotional body, and then your physical body.
Mm.
And the first three are very etheric, but they're a holograph. The physical body is a holograph of those other three. So what I tell my clients is that I call it the sustainable human. I have an actual little program called the sustainable human. Is we're only sustainable if all four of those bodies are met. Imagine it's a table and all four legs. Isn't it just the most unnerving thing when you go to a restaurant and you got the wobbly legs? They don't make matches anymore. At least I can't find them. Nothing goes underneath. You can't adjust it. And same thing with ourselves. So I say, what is your favorite body? Which one do you think is the best? Which one do you make work harder? Which one are you like, I'll get back to you later. You're not that important. Only when we start to balance those bodies and listen to them daily, if we could start doing that daily, it will send a ripple effect to the rest of our life and bring us into this alignment, not only in the little things that we do, but a greater alignment to our soul path and our soul journey. And while it sounds simple, I always say, is simple really easy? Because most times our reaction to each of those bodies is an imprint and a mirror of our conditioning, what our parents did, what our culture did, what our society does. It takes courage to show up and say, I told my friend I was going to go to lunch with her today, and I don't want to today. Or I just feel like crying. I'm going to let it out. Oh, no, I can't. I'm too busy. And sometimes I get it. You're in the middle of a meeting, but can you take a note down and come back to it later?
Yeah.
Making yourself a priority and rebuilding, that is answering the call of that nervous system, which will start to bring in your new people, places, things, your focus, all of it. So it all starts here.
That's about listening to the inner community and your inner
Yes.
tuition and to be guided by those whispers because there's always going to be that little person sitting on your shoulder whispering in your ear and making vibrations in your mind. And if you always listen to the negative parts of that, then obviously you're going to be more in sympathetic dominance, that your narratives are going to be negative. And so it's a question of being able to understand more about what this human design, this body, this human complex is all about. All of its adaptive systems, because it's an adaptive organism, but we know
Yes.
so little about it besides the mechanical aspects, but there are the unseen
Right.
aspects to the human as well, which we're not schooled in. I see you are a soul, a unique and precious soul in this great tapestry of existence, and your threads weave a tale of cosmic consciousness, connecting the realms of the seen and the unseen. I see your gift is the ability to bridge the divide between the physical or the material and the ethereal. guiding souls through the labyrinth of past lives, present
Yeah.
lives, divine destinies. How does your understanding of cosmic consciousness and past lives inform your healing practices? And can you share a profound experience where you witnessed the interconnectedness of this existence?
Yes. My favorite questions of all time. We could go down this past life journey all day long, Peter. Is my favorite topic of all time. Okay. I'm going to give you a little foundation to just orient the mind and the listeners to take it in. Remember, everything is energy first, right? And then I work with Dr. Jeffrey Tarrant, who wrote a book, Becoming Psychic. I tell you to run out and catch that right away. And I was fortunate enough to be a part of that book. And I'm in that book along with other psychics. And he mapped my mind. He's able to see where my mind goes when I do readings and things like this. It's really fun. But the one common ground that him and I have is that everything is energy first. The scientist and the psychic, our common ground is that everything is energy first. So when we really take that to heart and we understand that prior to entering our biology in this life, our soul orients in a way that says, okay, here's the traumas, here's the masteries. We're going to put them in a box together. This is the way I interpret it. So if we want this mastery, you got to go take a look at the trauma that's in there as well to really embrace it more fully. So we're this frequency, and then we come into a family and it's got to match the vibe. Everything is energy first. Law of attraction is a default mode. It's not just vision boards and all that. It's really default. So we're magnetically inclined to a certain ancestral history based on the culmination of our soul. Okay, so they meet at a crossroads there. So here we are with this ancestry, and perfectly and divinely so, as we chose, they bring up all of these past life traumas that we're meeting again, but in a different way. For instance, if I spin out on the Dan Ryan at 16 years old in Chicago, because that's where I'm born, if I'm back on that freeway at 56, and I'm like, oh, certainly something bad is going to happen. I'm going to die. If that's true, everybody would be spinning out in the middle of a snowstorm. That's not everybody. It's not the ultimate truth. You're different 40 years later.
Mm.
So, yes, the visceral fear is coming up. Be with it. Don't push it down. Let it be with you. I understand you're scared, but you were 16 then. You're 56 now. You're different. Let's be with this. Sure enough, it's coming up, but then I push through that threshold and I integrate it. I just don't say in my mind, oh, yeah, I could drive that. I could drive it. It doesn't matter until you actually go physically do it. This is how I see past lives. You
Right.
see this in the astrology, you see it in the cosmic story that we all are. Like I have a program that I created about 6, 7 years ago now, but I've been doing it like close to 20 years in my work, but I put a name to it and all that now, and it's called Into the Mystic. It's one-on-one mentoring, and we go into in this very specific certain way. I don't have the other people. It's not like past life regression. I go in with them, and we do something specific to get to the root of traumas in all of your systems. It's just mind-blowing how these past lives keep coming around again. We go there again. It looks the same, it smells the same, it tastes the same, may not be as deep, but we're different. And it's got to come up so that when we embrace it with our new awareness, then it's done. The healing happens. It's moved through. It needs to be witnessed and met with the biology, our physical body, in order for that timeline or that energy to really collapse and shift. I'll give you an example. There's so many super fun examples. This one happened before I made Into the Mystic, but like past lives is my jam. I can't help it. Like it comes up in just about every reading that I do. Anywhere I go, it's what happens. In the early 2000s, I was teaching massage at Mueller College of Holistic Studies in San Diego. We were working on the students, and it was an intensive training. So things get really built up and intensified. And I was just getting familiar and feeling comfortable with my intuitive state because I had these amazing teachers around me saying, oh, yeah, you're not crazy, which I like, why am I getting this? I didn't know what it was. And they're like, that's this, that, and this. And so got confident and able to share. So my hands go on this one girl. She was having a migraine, and I was working on her, and another teacher friend of mine was working on her. We're doing acupoints to flush her energy. And all of a sudden, I get this vision. This is pretty intense. I just want everyone to know it's going to be an intense vision. So hold tight. I just see deep, dark things. And so the vision I got was somebody, I could still see it to this day. I heard them hanging from a tree. Like I hear the squeaking of the rope on the tree. She had a black outfit on. It felt like burlap, black tights, black shoes. And it was her hung from a tree. It was dark and I smelled the smells and I hear these people around her. Like I hear the crowd and it's almost like I'm in the crowd and I just see the back of their heads. And it startled me because I'm just getting used to this gift. So I jump out and my student says, Jeannine, what was that? What did you see? And I'm thinking, I cannot tell her this. And I thought I'd get in trouble. It was too harsh because I'm very picky on my words. Like his words are powerful, right? And I didn't want to hurt her. So I waited a few days. She comes back to me and she's, what was it? I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell you. And so I explained it to her and I went back into the past life and said, you were a healer, but they thought you were a witch and they drug you out and they hung you. It was bad. And you didn't make it. She looks at me with this scared look on her face and her eyes up and she leaves. I said, oh my goodness, I've done something bad here. I've really hurt her. I was worried. And so she came back a few days later. She said, I need to speak to you. We went outside. I brought pictures. She said, I'm an accountant, but I was married and I wanted to go to this healing school. My husband wouldn't let me the first time. And the second time I said, I'm going. And the night that I was packing and said I was leaving, he almost killed her. And he strangled her so badly that she was in the hospital. She showed me the pictures. Her eyes were like her neck, everything. And she said, but I survived. I made it free. And I said, that's it right there. In that past life, you didn't survive. In this life, it was a different context altogether. And you made it free. And now you own it. It is yours. That's just one. I have 20 years of stories like that literally blow my mind every time I encounter them. I'm not saying that everybody has to induce that or stay in a negative relationship. No way am I saying that. What I am saying, however, is your soul will bring it on. And the beauty of what that did for her is that freed her from any shame. She said, wondered why I didn't see it sooner. I said, but you see it now. And it's like her soul needed to ignite that a bit. You see, these hardships we could bring shame upon. Why didn't I know better? And she felt so free of the shame after that. It was fantastic. And I said, oh, that's it right there. And 95% of what we create in this world comes from our subconscious realm, subconscious. That's psychology 101. So that's why I go straight to the past life. I'm like, that's the most subconscious thing there is. Yeah.
What a story. It's interesting because when you listen to people who've gone through an experience like that, there's one of two choices. They can either speak from their gifts or their wounds. If they're speaking from their gifts, then they evoke wisdom. If they're speaking from their wounds, that could throw them into victim consciousness, and they may get a lot of mileage out of that. Obviously, the antidote is to be a creator and to have a deeper understanding as to what is happening. You were saying earlier about people might think you're crazy, but there are
Right.
now neuroimaging studies on mediums because I'm interested in this side of things in neuroscience. But there was a study by Para and Villanueva, I think it was in 2017, but they used fMRIs, functional magnetic resonance imaging, to examine brain activity in mediums during a psychography task. And that's a form of channeling where the medium writes or draws under the influence of this kind of entity. What they found, the increased activity in brain regions associated with episodic memory retrieval and language processing and visual spatial processing during this task showed that mediums may engage in a disassociative process involving these cognitive functions. They also found there was increased activity in the frontal and temporal regions of the brain during a mediumistic state compared to a controlled condition. These brain areas are associated with self-awareness and episodic memory and emotional
Mhm.
processing. There was another study, I'll just mention this, was that they examined brain activity in mediums during a psychophonic trance, and that's a state in which the medium allows an entity to speak through them. Again, they found changes in brainwave patterns, including an increase in alpha and theta waves, which are associated with relaxed and meditative
Mhm.
states. So there's all this research now going on, and it's important to say these studies are exploratory and have relatively small sample sizes. So it can make it quite difficult to draw very definitive conclusions. Additionally, the interpretation of these measurements, of these results, has to be debated because I don't think there's any consensus on the underlying mechanisms, and I may be wrong, or validity of mediumship phenomena. Because while the neuroscientific evidence on mediums and channelers is still limited, these studies now suggest there may be measurable changes in brain activity associated with these experiences under these controlled conditions. Obviously, further research is needed to better understand the neural correlates and potential explanations for this phenomena. But it is interesting that these things are now coming to the fore.
It is. And Dr. Jeffrey Tarrant and I, we just had our first in-person retreat just up
Ah,
here in Santa Fe, New Mexico in March. And it was called Becoming Psychic, Bridging the Gap Between Science and Spirituality. And he's the master of this. He's a neuroscientist. The
right.
book is out, Becoming Psychic, Lessons Learned from Psychics, Mediums, and Healers. And he has been studying this for over 10 years with a myriad of psychics. Yeah. And so him and I have been working together, I believe it's around 3 years now. And just like you said, what he's measured in my brain is my ability to really flip from one side to the other quite
Mm,
simply. What I bring to that for him is how I've been able to do that and the way that I'm able to do that. And really, this is what it is because the vibe in the mind, where your mind goes, is the same vibe in the nervous system. That's the word we could use, the vibe, the frequency of the nervous
yeah.
system. When you get into listening to yourself, is this right for me? Am I in rest and relax? Do I really want to do this? Do I not want to do this? Gosh, I really want to eat a McDonald's and fries. They're going to say, okay, great, do that, but get calm, be highly conscious, feel what your body wants to feel before you eat it, feel what you're feeling during, and then feel after. But all these things require us to get into our bodies and feel and listen to our physical bodies. Most people now, they're like, no, we don't have times for feelings. We don't have time for physical. It's okay. That's fine. But that's the current paradigm of the chase, that everything in the mind is better and we ignore these things. But
Mhm.
these are the very things that the new paradigm is taking us to, the art of being, the art of listening and having a WITH experience with our biology. Are we to our biology? Are we at it? Are we telling it what to do? But when we're with it, we get quiet, we listen, we create space, and we listen to it, and that adjusts the brain waves and it takes us into this flexibility that I find as a psychic. It's all just a practice of presence. And yeah, you may sit there and say, well, I can't do that. I have to make money. Hey, I get it, man. I get it. I have children. I was a broker. I make fine money there. And I left that whole thing. So I understand that. But if we want to get into this vibe of spirit guiding us into what's more true, what I love to say is if you made that much money or stabilized yourself that way or had that many people in your life when you were not aligned, can you imagine where you're going to go when you are aligned?
It's huge because then you have a compatibility of alignment as
Yes.
distinct from an incompatibility of alignment between
Right.
the essence of who you are, the spiritual threads and the whispers that come through. And when there is that compatibility of alignment, oh my gosh, it can help you set your feet
Unstoppable.
upon the path. Yeah, you become unstoppable. Absolutely.
Right. I want to paint one more little picture that I love to say is, say, for instance, you want to get your kitchen done, right? And you're like, yeah, I'm going to get my kitchen done. And the property brothers show up. They're going to redo your kitchen. And they have all the plans and, oh, I get my kitchen done and the swatches and what it's going to look like. And then they start tearing things down. And I watch the shows and I'm always intrigued at the point in I'm waiting for it. Every show, I'm waiting for it. The moment where the client just melts down. They're like, what is happening? It's too dirty. I can't live like this much longer. Why did you have to pull out the walls? Why couldn't we just pretend that the electricity was okay? I didn't know. It's can of worms. Okay, but if you want a new kitchen, it's gonna get messy before it gets better. And there's this belief, and I run across this quite frequently, that people feel like the minute they go into a spiritual journey again, there's going to be no mess. I'm like, good luck, because that doesn't mean now my life now. I've been married for 20 years. Like the people and the places and the things I have in my life, oh my gosh, they're a million times greater than I ever imagined. But it was a messy kitchen before that happened. You know what I'm saying? And I had to live eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the backyard for a while, like metaphorically speaking. So I just want to manage expectations of what spirituality really is. It's a messy process, man.
That's a really good point. I'm really glad you've highlighted that, because you need chaos in order to facilitate coherence.
Yes.
Because otherwise, if everything is all lovely and you look at everything through rose-tinted spectacles, that's not real. It's just
No,
not real.
no, it's a good sell. It's a
It's
good
a good
hard
sell.
sell
Yeah, it's a good
for,
sell.
listen to
Yeah,
this and listen to that. But that ain't going to last for long because your soul
exactly.
needs to transform.
When I see you, you embody, embrace, and enact and extend what I see as a modern day priestess,
Mm.
a conduit for the ancient wisdom that flows through the veins of the universe. And I imagine you have sacred rites and rituals,
Mhm.
and you evoke the power of the elements and the celestial bodies and the unseen forces that shape our reality, offering a portal to sustainable personal transformation and move on to transcendence.
Right.
What are some of the sacred ceremonies or rites that you practice, and how do they facilitate personal growth and healing? And how do you help individuals tap into the elemental and celestial energies that are surrounding us?
Other great questions. I have this other little program that I offer. It's called Four Elements. It's a one-on-one mentoring. And while I always, in my readings, my intuitive readings, my astrology readings, I can't help but hear practical, holistic guidance because I'm a holistic health practitioner. I've studied traditional Chinese medicine. Like I can't help it. Like I can't help to hear if they need this herb or this acupuncture or this vitamin foods. I can't help but hear it. But what I also do is you could see in the astrology chart, you could see the strength of the elements for starters in the astrological chart in my Four Elements series. And each session we focus on that element. So there's earth, fire, wind, air, metal, water. We look at those elements and where they're strong, where they have a lot, where they may be missing some. Then I also bring in my intuitive capacity to hear where they've maybe been overarching on one or not dipping into the other. We work on bringing that together. So that's a big piece. And then for myself, is that every morning I wake up and my first connection is with spirit, it's with my body. I have more of a vertical existence than a horizontal. And that doesn't mean I'm up in the clouds and I'm not here. My feet are firmly planted on that ground and I go out barefoot. I don't care what time of the year it is here in New Mexico. If I got to jump off just for a minute and come back on, I, I want to be with the earth. I close my eyes and I light an incense and I pray to every element. I see the sun, I feel the wind, and then I notice the oxygen in my lungs. I see the sun and I notice the fire in my heart.
Mm.
I feel the earth and I touch my bones and my flesh. Like, how lucky are we in the water that I drink? I literally just for a moment, I get quiet and I feel it and I thank my kidneys. And we're mostly water in the ocean. Like, I just see the witness and I reconnect to really the greatest mother that we have. She's right here being holding us quietly as we play out these stories, these cosmic
Mhm.
stories. Then I capture that masculine energy that holds it all together while I flow. I do that every day. And I do that multiple times throughout the day. On my website, I have a thing called Sacred Clearing, and it's under the little tribe. You don't have to be a part of my tribe, it's a paywall thing, but it's in that section. I clear my energy daily, not to protect, because I don't use the word protection in my work. I don't do that, but I do it so I know myself. So I teach my clients to embrace the elements and to thank the food. It doesn't have to be long. It's just a pause, right? And to clear the energy, be with the energy so you know who you are and who other is. One last thing I want to share that goes along with your whispers is sommeliers, like wine tasters. They drink the wine. And I think you and I might have talked about this one time we were together, but when they drink the wine and they're just so specific, they drink it and they see meadows and they taste like oak and wood and rocks. I don't
Yeah.
even know what they taste in there. And I drink it and I barely know the difference between red and white. I don't know. I just don't know. There's perfume sommeliers, there's chocolate, coffee. It's because they've practiced it so much that they listen to the subtle, nuanced, sublime messages, like they parse it out because they're with it so much.
Mhm.
So I call myself a spiritual sommelier. I believe everybody is. But in order to do that, we have to be in our instrument, our sensory system to feel, gosh, that doesn't feel right. I wonder why. Let me sit with a little bit more and see if it's my stuff or their stuff. Let me see if it's a little of both. Let me feel why this doesn't feel right to me. Sometimes we don't get an answer. That's the mystery.
Yeah.
That's the mystic. But if it feels strong enough, we know if it's coming from down here versus up here. And the only way we're going to be able to parse that out is just like the wine sommelier practice being home, who we are versus others. So I also do clearing practices every day, morning, noon, and night. Sometimes in Trader Joe's, and I get out of Trader Joe's, I'm like, oh my God, what happened in there? Or wherever I'm at. And I bring that to my clients as well. Very important to have your
Beautiful.
own internal walking practice. You don't need candles. You don't need a room. You don't need an extra 20 minutes. Do it when you're at the kitchen sink.
Mm.
Do it when you're in the car. Do it when you're on the phone. Just ground, feel, sense, and honor yourself.
I love that practice. I love that it's also a practical toolkit that you can
Mhm.
humanize into application rather than just a rule book of behavior.
No,
And are you practicing what I would call electrobics because you're clearing your electromagnetic system,
yes, love that.
right?
Electrobics.
Yeah,
Woo!
you're cleansing your auric field and the auric cortex so that what you're manifesting inside of the auric cortex is a clean space for things to come through. Because if it's clogged like a straw, you try and suck a clogged straw,
Right,
nothing's going to flow. And if you're suffering from depression or you're suffering from anger or other kinds of psychic residue, that can blow holes in your auric cortex. It's a bit like taking a white sheet and putting it on a line and throwing black soot on it.
right,
So you feel clogged and you feel weighed down. But when you
right,
start that cleansing process and some of the practices you're talking about, it's a liberation, it's a freedom. You feel light, you feel clear. You're not trying to grab fog in your everyday life, trying to make sense out of it. This is what spirituality for me is all about. Is it's a practical application because we can all aspire to things, but do we operationalize them?
that's the thing is the mastery here. If you look at any type of, let's say, athletic event or whatever, the follow through is everything. My children, they would do taekwondo, and the coach would say, hey, just don't hit the brick, hit through the brick. And so
Yeah.
the mastery is in the follow through. Now, one more thing that I'll share, if I may, just to link in the importance of the past lives, is that oftentimes if we're finding that we're feeling something again and again, or there's a certain dynamic in our life that is showing up again and again, this is where the potency of the past life is, because there was a feeling there, an emotion there that wasn't met. So if you're feeling sad about something, as opposed to just trying to positively wash it away. I love to say, sit there with it for a minute and embrace it and say, what's happening? What's going on? And I say past lives are like my little kids. If I'm talking to Peter and my little son is, Mom, I want to show you a picture. I'm like, no, shh, talk to Peter. Comes again, he says, Mama, I want to show you a picture. I'm like, no, shh, shh. And then he's getting madder. And then he throws himself on the ground. And then it's a big tantrum. So that I invite him in. I say, hang on, Peter. And I invite him in. We have a little chat. He shows me his picture. Then he's happy and he's done and he runs away. And these past lives, they bring about a recurring dynamic. They'll bring about an emotion that we're like, why are we sad about this? I have no clue. It makes no common sense to me. And even though I try to make it go away with the mind, it keeps showing up. So we look at that past life. And when we draw it forward, it's like my son. I look at him for a final time and I'm like, that's a beautiful picture. All he wanted to do was be seen. So
And
that
heard.
witness and heard. And we all want that as humans. And so do our other lifetimes. These are
Interesting, yeah.
layers in us. And then you can work with it, because what I do then is I find a name of the individual. We get a name, we get a place, and we don't escape it. We don't push it away, but we're like, oh, that's coming through me right now. I know where that came from. That came from so and so in that life. I'm feeling it now, but I'm the medicine. I'm the answer to that question. It's not going to happen anymore. So I'm going to let that feeling happen, but I'm going to say, nope, you're safe, you're free, you're loved. It's over. Then you can move through without having to constantly hear it and constantly try to peaceful it away. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Call it spiritual acupuncture,
Ah,
right? Like I was a
yes.
shiatsu practitioner and I
Yeah.
did a lot of acupressure work, and we used to draw the meridians on our
Yes.
bodies to look at
Yes.
these almost like the freeway of the human. And it reminded me as you were speaking, I remember years ago I had dreams that I was in Egypt. My mother's from Egypt, my father's from Greece, and I had all of these beautiful pots
Oh,
with herbs in them. I was wearing this white tunic and I was working with people,
love
and
that.
and I also had dreams of being a warrior in Rome. And I
Yes.
recognize those two lives in me where it's not an academic
No,
perusal, it's
it
a
isn't.
visceral
It's
experience.
it feels different.
Yeah, it
You
feels different.
right? It's totally different. Right.
It was the blend of the divine softness of the feminine and the protection and rugged and robustness of the masculine,
Oh, love that
right?
explanation.
And because I'm two-thirds masculine and one-third feminine, when I interact with that, then I don't come across where my ego sits on the throne of hubris.
No.
I'm actually trying to come from the softness, but also with a firmness as well
Right.
about life and about whatever we are talking about and whatever I'm trying to viscerally feel in my system. But I have to learn, and your word listen, if you look at the word listen, it's silent by anagram or lets in, right? It's the same with universe. Universe is ever
Right.
in us. So when you look at language, it's micro-coded.
Yeah. The words, you could see these things evolve. The word love is in there. Like you
I
can't
know.
unsee them. Right. And I love that. You brought up a super important point, to the point, especially because as Saturn is in Pisces right now, first time
Mm,
in 30 years, we're going to be moving into a North node in Pisces here shortly. So our spiritual potential is huge. But to your point, it's not about an intellectual mind filled journey. Cannot be, because we could only take people as far as we have gone internally through our visceral nervous system experience. So, the way that you were able to capture the expression of your past life experience is so important, because it isn't a story that is anecdotal through the mind. It's like you go there, you feel it, you smell it. It's a different pulse through your
mm,
system. And same thing with, if we're going to be healers, and we don't all have to hang the shingle like we're doing, but we are, because everything's energy first and we're a frequency. We're pinging it everywhere we go. It's not what we do. It's not the letters behind our name. It's not what we say, that, or even all the things that I've done. It's like that. Yeah, those are helpful, But what shifts people most is my regulation, how
Mm.
deep I go with this work. And when I could get regulated in that way and I do that work, their souls sense it. The invitation here is to go do it. Yeah, get excited about learning about it, but it's about living it is what will
Yeah.
shift everyone and everything.
You spoke about the vertical because the horizontal is the maintenance realms. You got to get out, brush your
Yes,
teeth, go to the loo, do all these
right,
things, pay them all bills, and so on and so forth. And 99% of life is maintenance.
right,
But the vertical is much more radiational as distinct from gravitational.
right,
So the horizontal is much more gravitational, which is the material aspects of our life. But we mustn't forget about the radiational aspects of our life that can be a transmissive beacon
right.
for those who need to or want to or are looking to light up their own darkness. But they got to go into the darkness first because
Have to.
the darkness
Right,
absorbs light, and that's where they'll
right.
find it.
I love it, which is what that book is all about for me. And this is where I differ in the spiritual community, where so many people feel that light is the only way to go. And I'm going straight to the dark. So
Mm.
I don't know about that. And for me, there's a spectrum of dark. It isn't just this negative stuff. It's where all birth comes from. It's the color of the void. For me, everything is dark at the womb, the feminine, the yin. When you studied shiatsu, Chinese medicine, the yin inside of that shell, the womb, the feminine, that is where this creative potential lies. Instead, what I look is I see everything more as frequency. So I keep my vibe at a certain level because not all that glitters is gold either. So the light and the dark have different spectrums within them. But yeah, you've got to go into those places that perhaps feel unfavorable, that are hurtful, but they are the ones that heal. That's what matters most. It isn't just about lighting it all up and looking at the positive, because
But
that it's always going to be with us.
that's where frequency beats chemistry.
Yes.
Because when you go into the dark, or Carl Jung's concept of the dark mirror, he refers to the process of introspection and self exploration to
Yes.
uncover the unconscious aspects of the
Yes.
psyche. So the
Right.
dark mirror is a metaphor for delving in to the depths of one's unconscious mind, which contains the shadow, the
Yes,
repressed, the
exactly. Right.
unacknowledged or rejected parts of oneself. So when we peer into the metaphorical dark mirror, we can gain insight into our unconscious drives, our primal
Right.
urges, and
Yes.
unresolved psychological complexes that are normally hidden from our conscious awareness.
In terms of healing, to put it in like everyday terms, instead of getting as many super cool buckets that'll get the water out of your boat, just taking the boat out of the water and patching up the holes once and for all, like going behind that wall and telling the property brothers, why did you have to tear the walls down? I didn't want to know my electricity was bad. Meantime, I get all these fancy lights to make sure they don't flicker anymore. You know what? Wonderful. Those tools help, those healing tools, but let's just pull it all down and see what's really back there. And then you conserve your energy in the long run. Rip the band aid off, clean out the holes in the boats so then you don't have to need all these super fancy buckets. You could just be in a
Yeah.
calm boat.
When you tear a wall down, you can either look at the debris and focus on that, or you can step
Right.
into the space. It's an
I love that.
opportunity for you to not just look at the frame that's adorned with all your conditioning, but to actually look
I
through it. And when you step into it, yes, you are stepping into the unknown. Yes, you are going to look into the dark mirror, but that is part of the soul's journey. Otherwise,
right.
the soul experiences a separation event, and then you have anger and psychic residue and jealousy, all of these things we could talk about. I'm very aware of time, as you spoke in the beginning. Can we make this a pause continuance?
I would love that, Peter, because I'm having so much fun. Every time you say something, I'm like, oh my God, I've taken notes. Like you,
Have you?
every time you say something, yes,
Huh.
because you go on these awesome tracks and I want to continue on them, but I am mindful of time as well. I would love to be back with you again.
Okay, that'd be great. As this is a pause continuance for this enriching conversation, I'm filled with deep gratitude for your wisdom, insights, and personal experiences that you've shared with us today. And your journey as a healer, mystic, and seeker of truth has been a testament to the boundless depths of human potential and the limitless expanse of the cosmos we are all inherently connected to. Through your words, you've reminded me of the profound interconnectedness that permeates all aspects of existence, from the celestial realms that shape our consciousness to the ancestral currents that flow through our veins. So I want to thank you so much for today. Where can people find you, and do you have any parting words?
Absolutely. First, you're welcome and thank you. To be able to be met like this, how far away are we from each other? It's a far ways away. How many lifetimes did it take us to get here? Like minds, kindred spirits. I'm grateful for you as well, Peter, and this beautiful platform. Sure. My website is JeannineKim.com. I'm having a bit of a relationship with the social media. I'm sort of out there, not really, but you can find me on my website. I'm an old school gal, excuse me. But parting words, just get empty and trust every day. Trust yourself a little bit more. And every day, just carve out a little space for the spirit, the mind, the emotion, and the physical. Listen to them every day. And then just watch how that shifts your life. Just watch.
Mm, beautiful message. Beautiful message. And thank you, Jeannine, for being a
You're
beacon of light and
welcome.
wisdom and healing in this world, and your dedication to uplifting others and fostering their spiritual growth for me is a true inspiration. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much as well. Thank you.
How have you experienced today?
I loved it. I want more. Peter, I could have gone on. Are you kidding me? I'm like, oh my God, this guy talks my language. He speaks my language. And your words, I remember this about you before. You're you're wordsmith, man. You're wordsmith.
I like language.
I could tell.
I'm very keen on trying to find different ways of expressing things that aren't
Right.
just vomiting out, but
Yes.
a cultural yuck.
Oh, no. And when you say it, it encapsulates it. So it's like the cerebral aura thing. That was brilliant. And even just like the things that you say, it gives it just a whole meaning. You're just not piecing words together. You give somebody a picture. For me,
Hmm.
that's helpful. And I really appreciate it. Thank you
No,
for having me, sir.